So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can kind of do whatever you want with that. That's what I do with mine. I mean, you don't, Kelly, you don't have any custom cards.
No.
So yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's sweet. It's fun. I don't know. I think it's like a good prize for winning the Invitational.
You also have non-singleton cubes up here. This is not something I've necessarily seen, but
this is kind of like Squadron Hawk case, or also if you want, like, what example would you give, Dave? If you wanted a non-singleton cube, like, so you would want, like, maybe I want to include Champion in the Parish in my cube, and I want Champion Parish to be the only white 1-drop, so they build off of each other. So instead of having him plus Elite Vanguard plus Savannah Lions as 1-drops, you have just 3 Champions of the Parish.
Right. Yeah, you could do that. And also, if you wanted to, I guess, so Mike does this with, so Mike has a Modern Masters cube.
Yeah.
And he kind of built rarities into it, or not built the rarities in, but he basically has, I believe, 3 copies of every common,
And
2 of every uncommon, 1 of every rare and mythic. So that it kind of mirrors like a real Modern Masters draft, or tries to mirror that.
You build the packs a little bit differently than you typically would. So.
Yeah, because some of the archetypes in that specific environment require multiples of the same card, and it definitely helps you support archetypes more. If if there's only one card that does this unique effect, well, if you put more than one copy of it in your cube, now you support it more.
Right. That I think like breaking the non-singleton rule is probably like one of the most advanced things, and it's like super hard to make work correctly.
Yeah, I can imagine that having to get around that. The idea of, this is a limited environment, you're not necessarily, this is a special limited environment, you're not necessarily going to get multiple copies of something. Making that all work and it look nice is probably pretty difficult, but let's move on. So we also have this section here called errata, and obviously some cards have been printed that have had some changed, text on them, and then further probably change of rules for Cube.
Right, change the rules for cubes. This section we also include a thing where one of our friends, Andy Kupenfaust, his white section had rebels in it, where creatures that aren't normally rebels, he put just rebel on it. So and this is back like when you added Squadron Hawk, because white wasn't very good.
This is way back. White's gotten a lot better.
Right, white's gotten a lot better, but this is basically things we were talking about, like Mirror Entity, Revel Arc, Aven Rift Watcher. These were all quote unquote.
Well, Mirror Entity already is a rebel.
No
errata necessary on that one.
All right,
it was like I believe it was like what's the
ones I remember: Revel Arc, Cloudgoat Ranger, Aven Rift Watcher. These type of things. While fun, while it does power up that section, it does give you a great thing to draft around. If this is the first time I drafted that cube and I attacked him, and he had just one little Rebel Searcher out, and I got ambushed by a Cloudgoat Ranger, was not fun. But once you played a bunch and you realize, oh, he's got, he can search for 5 or less. Well, that means Revel Arc, that means Cloudgoat Ranger, that means this, that means this. Then it becomes a lot more fun. So it depends on how often you draft and how much the drafters draft your cube.
Yeah, it kind of just goes back to like what we were talking about at the beginning about, how easy is this to describe to somebody who's never drafted your cube before. Another common errata that people have is Chaos Orb.
Yeah, I have Chaos Orb in my cube.
So do you want to just like explain what Chaos Orb does? Because I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that card is.
Oh, well, what it actually does?
Yes.
Okay. It's a 2-mana artifact. You can pay 1 and tap it. You flip Chaos Orb from a height of at least 1 foot. So this is a physical dexterity card. And if it turns over completely once, then it destroys all non-token permanents that it touches. So that's not what you do in my cube with it. We're not doing physical dexterity cards. Basically, all it is 2 mana to cast and 1 tap, destroy target permanent.
No. Do you do it? I know that some people do it, that it's like they make it worded like you just choose a permanent so you can hit like things with Shroud or Hexproof. Or do you do it just
I just do
target?
I just do target just because it's easier to explain to new players. It's Vindicate. It's destroy target permanent. Because I know some people also do, in the spirit of the old card, you can't kill tokens. because the old card said whichever card it touches, and on the old cards, that wording meant it doesn't destroy tokens, which I think that's probably too much. But again, we're in this space of if you sit down at my cube, well, what's your cube? It's a rare cube. The only exception is you're going to see a Chaos Orb. It's just destroy target permanent. And we're going to do we're going to draft lands in between each pack.
Yeah. So as you might imagine, a 2-mana colorless Vindicate is pretty good. I think it's a fun card because it's really like what other chance are you going to get to play Chaos Orb? There's really no other format that you would play that in unless you're just playing just straight casual.
Yeah, and if I didn't own one, it wouldn't be in there.
Yeah. So yeah, Chaos Orb is a lot of fun, especially if you have Sun Titan in your deck. But I think that's really it for errata.
Yeah.
I guess like another card that I just thought of it now is Booster Tutor is like a card that people have in the cube sometimes, and that's an unglued card.
Right, it's an unglued card. It's black sorcery. It's 1 black mana. It's a sorcery. You get to open a booster pack, choose a card from it, and put it in your hand.
Right.
And in cube, it's really sweet because they give you 15 really awesome cards.
Yeah.
Because it's cube.
So yeah, you just basically take like 15 cards that weren't used in the draft. And you make like a quote unquote pack, and you pick one from that. So that's one that might have like special rules depending on how you do it. But yeah, I mean, again, it's all about having fun. So I mean, if you find a card that's like sweet or like maybe it might need to be tweaked a little bit so that it works correctly, I mean, feel free to do it. But keep in mind that you may have to explain that to people
who's never going to be drafting. So let's talk about let's talk about balance. So sometimes you may discover that you have some cards in there that are just too good, and just they create an unfun drafting environment. People the people that you play with, they have that cast against them, and they're just like, I'm done with this. Like I can't stand this.
Yeah, once you get 50 or so drafts in, you realize your group is always complaining about this card.
X card, yeah.
Jace Memory Depth. Every time my opponent casts Jace Memory Depth, I lose immediately. Well, okay, so Jace is probably too good in a format with only 40 cards. He just mills you 10, you're dead. Other examples of that would be Sword of Body Mind. It's same concept.
Same idea.
Mill a bunch of cards.
Only this time the person also gets a 2/2 creature.
Yeah, also gets a 2/2 creature, also has protection for blue, also has protection for green. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, those ones are probably like the biggest offenders, or like cards that like Jace Memory Adept was not. It was okay when it was in standard. It did see some sideboard play,
right?
But for the most part, people would say it's not the worst Jace ever, but it's probably the second worst Jace ever, right? In Cube though, yeah, it's just completely. It leads to gameplay that is non-interactive, and it's just not fun.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about this section, we're talking about like non-powered cubes.
Yeah,
some of these cards, are certainly fair if people are casting turn 1 Soul Rings, Time Walks, Black Lotus, that stuff.
Yeah,
but if you're looking for a non-powered cube and you're trying to keep interactive games that are fun yet exciting, well, then you probably need to start cutting some of these cards.
Right. Now, it's not to say that like any mill card is not fun. I think mill is something that is interesting that you can kind of work into the cube, but these kind of like just mass mill cards that just kill in 2 shots, it's just not. It just leads to just games that just aren't. Like even if you're winning, you're not really you're like, oh cool, I just cast this card.
No one is having fun.
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah, even if you won that game, you're like, well, that wasn't very fun. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I killed you. That's great.
Yeah. I think so. Next on this list is basically cards that kind of start warping the environment around them or invalidating other strategies. A common thing for people to do is to take signets out of their cube. I know signets were very popular back in the early cube design, but they invalidate most of what green is trying to do.
Yeah.
They take green slice of the color pie of ramping and just distribute it among colors that shouldn't have it.
Right, yeah. It basically lets blue have rampant growths. And, along with just any other artifact, synergies that you might have. I think it's pretty common for people that have kind of normal, maybe even non-power cubes to just cut signets altogether because, like you said, yeah, it takes green's part of what green does is ramping, and it does it really well. And basically, taking out a green, it's like, okay, well, why would I play green when I can just play like blue-black with a couple signets and do the same thing that green's trying to do?
Right, and you can even see that with the high pick priority that signets have in like Vintage Cube. Yeah. So if you have seen any videos of it or anything like that, I know that it is told to you probably time and time and again that signets are very high in these powered formats. Highly coveted, so that speaks volumes to somewhere where it's not necessarily even a powered format. How truly powerful those specific cards could be, and even if you look at like let's say Cons or Dragon's Maze, where they had clue stones and banners, where it's like those are like the wannabe signets, and how powerful signets are comparatively to those cards, because they can't do that again.
Yeah,
basically.
The 1 mana difference just makes all the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, that's not to say that like you can't play any mana rocks, as they're called. I still have like Cold Steel Heart, Mind Stone,
Everflowing Chalice.
Everflowing Chalice. Yeah, these are ones that typically they're adding colorless, so they're not. It still it lends some ramp to some of the non-green colors. But it's not like there's 10 of them.
Yeah. They're either adding colorless or they're coming to play tapped if they add colored.
Right. So I mean those ones are less powerful than the signets, but still give you something to do. Like it could even back up green. Like sometimes green will play Everflowing Chalice if you want to go really big. So
the next thing that I know I'm a pretty big stickler on in my cube is protection from red, protection from white. These type of cards where you're playing your mono red deck, you've beat your last two opponents, you sit down in the finals, the 2-0 deck, and then your opponent taps 2 white and casts a Silver Knight. And now all of a sudden their card that they haven't played the whole night that they brought out of their sideboard completely wrecks you. Or Paladin and Vec. Things like that.
Yeah. Protection can, kind of going back to like the middle example that we had, it can lead to games that are just there's really just nothing you can do about it. Now, I mean, I guess you could say, well, you could splash another color to have a removal for it or something like that. But then it's just like, why are we warping our decks over like this stupid 2/2? You know what I mean? with protection from red.
Right, and if you have a red-green deck, you're already playing 2 colors, but now this protection from red card is destroying you because all your removal is red.
Yeah. I think, so the biggest point of contention for protection is the cycle of swords. So we mentioned Sword of Body and Mind. That's kind of like the most egregious one as far as like just being unfun.
More for its effect than it's for its protection. Yeah.
Yeah, but it has the protection as well. It's just like there's nothing you could do. But yeah, just the swords, like all of them really. I mean, if you get the right matchup, like if you have like a Sword of Fire and Ice and you play against like a blue-red deck, then you're just like, oh, cool. Like,
I think a better example is like a Sword of Light and Shadow, which isn't as powerful as a Sword of Light.
Okay, yeah.
Fire and Ice. But given the right matchup, just completely dominates the game because whatever removal color their deck is, it just blanks.
Yeah, and if they don't have like a disenchant type effect, there's just actually nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. It's I don't know. Like swords, I love swords. Like I think swords are awesome, and like if you have Stoneforge Mystic in your cube, then that can be like a great payoff for taking a card like Stoneforge Mystic early. Like, you're like, oh cool, any swords that I open, I'm going to take these because they just make my Stoneforge awesome. But at the same time, it can lead to games that are just not interactive.
We've played many a draft where a player will have 2 swords in their deck, and they'll all be protection from 4 different colors.
Right.
So I know in my cube specifically, I've limited it to no more than 2 swords per draft. I go in and make sure that's always the case.
Right. I think another card that kind of is along the same lines is it Mirren Crusader?
Yes. I know. See, this is me being overly strict on the protection rule. My cube has no protection from a color in it. So I've replaced Mirren Crusader with Fabled Hero. They're both 1 white for a 2/2 double strike. But Mirren Crusader is just pro black, pro green. Sometimes irrelevant, sometimes the best card in your deck.
Yeah, like, but I feel like black green is like kind of a popular color combination for people that cube, just because there are a lot of like sweet decks that you can build. You can build like recurring nightmare, survival of the fittest if you have like a regular cube, or like
You
in
can
mine,
ramp
for
up
example.
to some of the larger black flyers or demons. Some of those more fun cards. It's
Right.
Yeah.
Or have like
the
a
green
reanimator
black
type.
Yeah, the green black archetype is very popular.
It's popular, and then just like having somebody just play a mirroring crusader, and then maybe like equipping that up with something.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, cool, I'm dead in like 2 shots, or like over 3 turns, I can't do anything about that.
Yeah, you want to talk about a few of the things that you've taken out of your cube for power reasons? Like swords to plowshares, demonic tutor, that type of thing?
Yeah, we could talk about that. So kind of along the so sacred cows is kind of the next thing that we're going to talk about here, and this in what we mean by sacred cow is basically a card that when you think of, you're just like, oh, obviously you just have that in your cube. Like, oh, you have lightning bolt is in every cube, but it doesn't matter if it's a common cube or a rare cube. It's just going to be in everything. That's a card that is just always played. So for my cube, Swords to Plowshares, it's an uncommon. It technically fits the peasant, restrictions that I've placed, but I decided to cut it from my cube just because I feel like white shouldn't have the best removal spell possible.
Right, it's very out of color pie for white.
Right, yeah, it's like they would never print that card in current design for Magic. So I still have Path to Exile, and that's still very good. But Source of Plowshares was just a little bit too, like, it's just like, it doesn't lead to interesting drafts either. Like, basically, if I'm drafting and I just see a Source of Plowshares, I'm not even in white. I'm just taking Source of Plowshares, so I don't care. I'll splash this. This is so good. Like,
Yeah.
So it was more like for color pie reasons. I didn't want white to have the best removal, and it's just to make better draft decisions, or like I guess more interesting draft decisions. Same with Demonic Tutor. It was printed at an uncommon. It would never be an uncommon nowadays, and it was the only tutor in my whole cube. So it's really only as powerful as whatever you're getting, but it just kind of like didn't really fit the spirit of my cube. So I decided to cut it. But I know that a lot of peasant cubes would never cut those cards because those are just staples and.
I think it's just important to do, and it's just because you've cut them today doesn't mean they never have to come back. An important thing of when making a cube is making these tough decisions, drafting it a bunch to see how it plays out. You can always go back on it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you take out swords and you realize, well, the cube never didn't need it, and now, white's kind of more fun. Now it's more interesting to draft, those kind of things. So
right. Another one we have on this list is Soul Ring, which, I mean, that really doesn't fit the spirit of a peasant cube because that's the best card in like vintage cubes. So, that one. It was in my original list, like back in the dark ages of cube, like
when you're just putting together all the best cards.
Oh yeah,
is this common or uncommon? Yes, go in.
Yeah, like oh cool, turn 2 Avalanche Riders. Yeah, that one's it's a little too good.
Time to take this out.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing we want to talk about for balance is to be mindful of how many sweepers you have in your cube, or removal in general, like 2-for-1s, and card advantage. This basically comes from if you have too many 2-for-1s or too many sweepers in your cube, all the decks will become these mid-rangey control decks, and the aggressive decks can never win.
Right. Another thing with just sweepers in general, like you want to make it so that you have to kind of put a premium on sweepers. So if you have just like every Wrath of God variant possible, like you're not going to put a high priority on taking, a Day of Judgment or a Wrath of God in the first couple of picks because you're like, oh, whatever, I'll just like get one later in the draft.
I'll get a Rout or an Auster Command or a Cataclysm or all these things because he has all these in his cube or something. Right.
And like you said, I think making aggro work is something that I think like I still struggle with.
It's something you have to. It's basically almost in an archetype, you want control decks, you want mid-range decks, you want aggressive decks, and it's something you have to work for because all the fun, sweet cards are always these mid-rangey control cards.
Like people just want to play like planeswalkers and like big powerful effects like Cruel Ultimatum and stuff like that. Those are sweet.
And then you have the fun police.
You
then,
need to have the fun police.
Then you have the fun police, or you have somebody, they get past, a Night of the White Orc, and they're thinking, oh, this cube supports, White Weenie deck. I want to build White Weenie. White Weenie's fun, and they just get destroyed. Yeah. Because there's just too many 2-for-1s in the deck, in the cube. There's too many sweepers in the cube. So you have to be mindful of that when you're building a cube, too. Trying to keep that balance.
Yep. Going for the 2-for-1s, like a good example for my cube is I don't have Arc Trail or Electrolyze in my cube because they're proven to be just way too good against aggro. If you're playing like a pauper or peasant cube, a lot of the aggressive creatures are maybe like 1/1s and 2/1s. You're generally not going to have like the 1 mana 2/2s or like 2 mana 3/3s as much in those. So being able to just like kill 2 creatures early on, it basically just ends the game. Like Electrolyze killing 2 guys and drawing a card, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like I can't lose now. It just turned out to be a little too good against aggro. So I ended up cutting that. I guess that's like another example of kind of like a Sacred Cow thing because Electrolyze is in almost every peasant cube that I've seen. So.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of what you leave in, a lot of what you take out is also dependent on who you play with. You get a lot of feedback from your players, and they may like or dislike certain cards and archetypes even. So you can even see that influencing how your cube gets built.
Yeah, these are all fun rules to have. I can have all the theories I want about my cube, but if I take upheaval out, I'll start getting complaints.
If no one wants to draft your cube, then what's the point of having it?
Cube, then what's the point of having it? Exactly.
Complaints mostly from me.
Complaints mostly from Dave.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, really, when it comes to balance, it really comes down to, like you said, your play group. Like, you want to make an environment that people are excited to draft, and that people will keep coming back for more. You know what I mean? Like if you make an environment that's like only one deck is playable, or if
you have these cards that just wreck games completely. Oh, this cube has Jace the Memory Adept in it, or this cube has Mirror Crusader in it. It's really boring to play against that card. I don't like playing against it.
Right.
They just will quit showing up. Quit wanting to play.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily even just like power level, but just like. And this could vary from play group to play group. It's just like what does your group like to draft? What do they like to play? Definitely.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong. If the people like doing that, then do it.
Yeah.
If you have fun doing it, then do it.
Yeah, I mean, it really the best advice that I could give is just like listen to the players that you play with, like in your group. Like get feedback from them. If you have like maybe a certain card that you added and you weren't really sure if it was good, like. Ask the person that drafted that card. Oh, hey, how was this for you? Like, did you play this main deck? Did you sideboard it? How was it? It can really help you for a lot of cards that are kind of like on the fence cards. Like you might see a card in a spoiler and like, that might be sweet, but I'm not really sure. That's I guess the best thing that I can say is, advice wise, is just. Listen to the players.
Yeah. Be receptive to feedback.
Yes, absolutely.
And then last, we kind of want to talk about some crazy ideas. And I know I've seen a lot of these. These are a lot of Dave's Cube specific ideas that I see here listed. But we have things like Nivix Cyclops and Sphinx's Tutelage, and Benthic Giants, Imperial Recruiter, Homicidal Seclusion. Now. These you might be able to filter some of these around the build around me cards, but these are even more out there, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, starting from the top, like Nivix Cyclops. I know when this card came out, Dave's Cube didn't really have a blue-red, quote-unquote blue-red spells deck. It was kind of more of the 2-for-1 deck, like Electrolyze, Jilt, those kind of things.
Yep.
So we put this card in and found, man, this gameplay is actually kind of fun. So let's put Delver Secret, let's support this Delver Secrets archetype some more. So you put in Young Pyromancer when that came out. You put in Flux Charger because it's blue-red spells. thing.
Yeah,
Then you
Electrode.
find Electrode is actually probably the best blue or red card in your cube. That kind of thing. Once you start building this archetype in, these cards start going up in value that normally don't see play otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a sweet. That was you had suggested that one to me, and I was just like, yeah, this is.
One
this is
for
actually
defender.
pretty
Why
cool.
do I want this guy? But then, once we started playing it, it turned out, man, this card's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. And in all the other ones, I mean, all the cards that you mentioned, Morgan, are all cards that I wasn't going to add to my cube, and that got suggested to me from other people. Like Sphinx's Tutelage was one that was like, yeah, this like is.
I think we have to give credit to Mike on that one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if we don't, we'll hear about it.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. That one was one I was like, I really wasn't sure on. I was like, this is like kind of slow, but it's been super. I don't want to say busted, but like if you draft like Brainstorm and
It's definitely like a high. It has risen to be like a high pick order card.
that is like a super build around me. Like you take that in pack one and you just take like all the
And
cards.
then you start taking all the looters. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you want to draw cards anyway. You want to have a certain amount of card draw in your deck anyways, but you find ways to get this incidental card draw in it as well.
It's really good with Sensei Divining Top too.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think one of my sorry for the dog. We'll see if he's quiet. All right.
All right, what were you saying?
Anyway, one of my favorite cards is Homicidal Seclusion in your cube. It definitely is something that you can even fit into the red and black sacrifice archetype that we were talking about. A way to sort of like limit the creatures you have. Or I know that blue black a lot of the time has very good success with it. Just for the sheer fact that a lot of in your cube, a lot of the deck is usually spells, and you have a low creature count. So Homicidal Seclusion helps with that, and also counteracts some of the aggressive strategies that are in the cube, allowing you to gain some life and have basically this giant creature that is going to end the game.
Yeah, it gives you this cool sub game of, well, my opponent has 5 creatures out, but I only want to play 1, so I get this bonus. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's actually correct, to play more than 1 just until you stabilize, and then, like you said, sacrifice your own creature, turn it on, and surprise, kill your own creature, and surprise combat, those type of things. So it's a very unique card.
Yeah. And then sort of the last thing we have in here is under the crazy ideas section are rarities.
This is kind of along the lines of the Modern Masters cube that Mike has.
Or like the Modern Masters philosophy in general, where rarities have been shifted.
Or you can even just create your own cube completely and disregard the rarity printed on the card and say, well, I want, like the example of the Champion Parish or like Student Warfare. I want Student Warfare to be my white weenie card. So I'm going to make that card a common. So there's going to be 3 of those in my cube.
Yeah, or you might say like, like I might want to have like 2 of every uncommon, but Sphinx's Tutelage isn't really a card I want to have like a million of. I only want to have one of those, so we'll bump that up to rare. We'll only have 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
again, that's an advanced cube that takes a lot of time, a lot of drafting, and a lot of just patience to trying to figure out where things go. Because not only do you have to balance the colors, balance converted mana cost, now all of a sudden you have to balance, well, if I change this card from 3 of in my cube to 2 of in my cube, what does that do?
yeah. You can kind of get an idea of like how difficult R&D's job is when like actually designing real Magic cards when you're just trying to like balance these formats, and it's just so much to take into consideration.
The one advantage I'll say they have is if they have a problem, they can just make a new card.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, like the rarities thing, I think is like that's like expert level advanced cube design.
Yeah, fair enough. We're kind of shifting into the last bit of the podcast here, but we wanted to talk about, at least touch on some of the cube formats and types of drafts that you can actually have.
Yeah, so now you have your cube built.
Yeah.
Now, how are we going to play?
Yeah, so obviously you have your regular draft, which is typically going to be an 8-person draft. Most of the time you're going to have 3 packs each, consisting of 14 cards, because you won't necessarily have basic lands.
14 cards or 15 cards,
or 15.
whatever.
Yeah, whatever you want. But you also have Rochester Draft, which is sort of we touched on a little bit. It's a face-up draft where you each go around, lay out a pack, and then you pick cards from that pack until all the cards have been picked.
And then the next player opens their pack, and you go around
so
until
on and so
all
forth.
the packs are open.
It's an old draft. You don't see it at all in any sort of Magic thing, but it has been something previously in Magic.
Yeah, this used to be played at high level events like Grand Prix and even Pro Tours. So.
It used to be a PTQ format. The PTQ finals would be Rochester.
Right.
And it's it makes sense because it's a very skill intensive draft format. So it's like drafting on hard mode, basically.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of skill. It is very time consuming.
I'm very bad at it, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that like we don't play anymore. I mean, we play it at the Invitational.
Yeah, that's the only time we play it. Thanks, Dave. Because that's not challenging or anything.
That's why it's in there. One that we didn't put on here, Keller, and I can't believe we missed this one, was Rotisserie.
I was just typing.
Yeah, he was.
I was going to type it in, put a question mark.
Rotisserie draft is awesome.
So Rotisserie is kind of unique to a cube. Basically, what it is you lay out every card in the cube face up. So all the cards are available, and then you just one at a time draft a card.
It's kind of like if you've ever drafted like fantasy football.
Yeah.
You just have like all the players available. It's kind of like that, where you just take like whoever's available. And you just go around.
Again, very time consuming to one set up and then to draft because given 700 choices, people seem to take a lot of time.
I can't believe that. That seems weird.
But it's a lot of fun. It just gives you, again, something else you can do. You don't have to have a special cube for it. It's just you can do it once a year or something. Sometimes it tends to go on rails. You start noticing what all the information is public, so you know what everyone else is playing. So the mono red cards typically all go to the one player. So you end up with these super powerful decks, but everybody has a super powerful deck.
Right.
So you get it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. One thing that I've seen people do is even if you don't have it, if you don't do it live, you can set up like a Google Doc or something where people have access to, and you just kind of just make your picks there, and then whoever owns the cube can kind of build the decks, and then just give them to people. Like maybe you'll meet up at a different time, and you just have the decks pre-made and go from there. I mean, everybody knows what everybody knows what's in everybody's deck anyway. Right.
So moving on from that, we also have some 1v1 formats. So you don't necessarily need an entire cube group to play. You also have options to play your cube if you're just having one other person. So we have a grid draft, which is fairly simple to kind of explain, but you guys want to go a little bit more in depth on it?
Sure. So grid draft is so it's 1v1. So each player gets 9 packs of 9. And then, so say I'm player A, I open up my pack of 9 and I lay it out like a grid, so just a 3v3 grid. So I have 9 cards. And then I'm either taking a column or a row. So I'm going to take, 3 cards or 3 cards. And then the other player gets to take a column or a row. And then the rest of the cards...
After you've taken your column or row,
right.
You have 6 cards left.
Right.
So then you can take... If player A took a column, then you can take a row, which gives you 2 cards, or you can take another column, which gives you 3 cards.
Right, and then the rest of the cards get discarded. Then the other player opens up their next pack, and then they get the first pick.
It goes back and forth. It's something you do when you have only 2 people because you can't just do a normal draft that way. Right. You can't just open cards and do this. This lets you see a lot more cards, let you build kind of cohesive decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the real strategy is like, okay, do you want to take like the row that has all the best cards for you, or maybe you take like a column that maybe has like only one card that you would use, but you're going to hate draft like a really powerful card from your opponent. So there's a little bit of that in there. It is more, I would say, less skill intensive, just because it like sometimes you can just open up a pack that just has like 3 ridiculous cards in a row, and you just like get them all.
Yeah. There's not much control over. You're right. There's a lot more randomness to it.
Right.
Yeah, and the real trick is you don't ever look at what you want to draft.
Just don't look at it.
Don't look. It doesn't exist.
Then the other person will take it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, just like it doesn't exist, so that they won't even know. Why would they take it?
Right.
Then next up we have 1-2-2-1. So, assumedly, you look at a pack, take 1 card. The next person the opposing player takes 2, then you take 2, and then they take 1.
Yeah, this is kind of another like face up. So you get packs of 9. You just open up all the cards. They don't have to be in any specific order or any kind of grid or anything like that. And then so You had it right. So yeah, first person takes one card and it goes 2, 2, 1. The remaining 3 cards get discarded. Move on to the next pack, and so forth. That one's a little bit better because you're not,
you can't take the 3 most powerful cards at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
And you only get the 1 pick, so you may get the most powerful card, and then the next player, he gets 2 cards that have really good synergy with each other.
Yeah, or they just get like the next 2 most powerful.
Yeah, or the next 2 most powerful
Yeah.
cards, yeah. The next format is called Winston. This one is so you want to explain this? All the cards are in like just one pile. You count a certain number of cards are in a pile, and then you create 3 face down piles of one single card.
Right.
Then that player looks at pile A and decides if they want to take it or not. If they take it, they keep that card and then they replace it. If they don't take it, then they put a new card on pile A and look at pile B. So now pile A has 2 cards, B and C both have 1. Look at B, repeat the process. If you don't take it, put a card on B, look at C, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so this is kind of the first 1v1 format that I ever played. And the idea is kind of like, so say on like pile A, right? It's got like kind of some mediocre cards that you don't really want to take. Well, over time, it's going to keep just having cards added to it. And like eventually you're just like, all right, well, there's just too many cards here.
Eventually
Like,
there's
I'm just gonna...
5 cards there, 2 of them are in your colors, and it's just better just to take those.
Right.
And this one has the advantage of it's not public information, so it's kind of fun to try to figure out what your opponent is drafting based off of, well, okay, last time pile A had 1 card, I put a random one down, I didn't know. Then he didn't take pile A, so now it's got 3 cards.
So you can kind of figure out like what cards they know about.
Yeah.
And,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's
And
they
what they're
know
not.
some information, but not, you don't necessarily know all information. So that's pretty interesting. And then next up is Winchester, which is named my cat. I did not name him after this draft format, but it's like Winston.
Yeah, it's like Winston, so if you let your cat draft.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Winston, but with face up this time with 4 piles. So if I get another cat, though, I'm naming him Winston, though. So
Yeah, this one has 4 face-up piles, and instead of having pile A, B, and C, you can choose any of the piles. But so then I take pile A, and then I put a card to replace A, and put one on B, C, and D. So now B, C, and D all have 2. So now Dave drafts, and he takes B. So now A has 2, B has 1, C and D have 3, and it builds up back and forth over time like that, right?
Right. This is one I haven't played this one in a long time, but yeah. I mean, all of these formats you can find resources online. Like if you just Google them, like Grid
For sure.
Draft, Winston, Winchester. You can find there have been articles I believe on the Mothership about Winston and Winchester specifically. I know have been there were articles on the Mothership a couple years ago. Moving on to teams. So team draft is sweet. And it's probably my favorite. way
So
to
now we
draft.
have more than just 2 people playing. Now we're
Right.
back to 6 players, 8 players, 10 players.
yeah,
Yeah,
So
I mean, I would say at the minimum 4 players.
yeah, for sure. So you have your XVX, so you have your 3v3 and your 5v5. 3v3 usually you just play everyone.
Yeah, it's your standard team draft like you could do with the normal expansion where you sit team A, you sit staggered A B A B A B.
Right. Now, there were a couple of ways that you could do this. So you can either choose teams ahead of time, right? So you figure out what the teams are, then you sit down and, like you said, like you alternate. So you're not going to sit next to your teammate at any point. Or you can do it where like everybody sits down at the table, you draft, then you figure out what the teams are, and that kind of it takes away the incentive to kind of hate draft as much. Because really, what you're supposed to do if you're playing like a 3-on-3, you're really just supposed to like just hate the crap out of your neighbors. Like you just take the best cards. You don't want them to have the good
You
cards.
want to wreck the other team's deck and then
Right.
build the best of what you have.
Yeah.
But if you don't choose the teams beforehand, then you don't know that the person sitting to your left is going to be on your team or not.
Right. The 5v5 we kind of came up.
Yeah,
with
this
we
comes
kind of
up with-
invented this.
This came up because we kept having 10 people show up at
Yeah.
a draft, and then what do? Well, we'll just have a 10-player draft. Okay, at that point, we have 10 players, and I don't want to play 9 matches. I don't want to play 5 matches in a night. That's too many matches because we want to have a second draft because we're degenerates.
Yeah.
So we came up with this format where we assign everybody a number 1 through 5. And what you do, you play the number that's the same as you on the other team the number that's one higher than you and one less than you.
Right. So say if you're a 3, you play the opposing team's 3. You also play the opposing team's 2 and the opposing team's 4.
Yeah. And obviously 5 wraps around the 1.
Right. And this just ensures, so like you're only playing 3 matches.
So this has the advantages of being a 6-person draft. So you play 3 matches, they show up. But, you also can squeeze 10 people in. Like I said, you don't have to play 5 matches to figure out the winner.
Right. And it's best to kind of keep track of this on a whiteboard. We found out, just so we know, you can kind of keep track of who's supposed to play who, and then just wins and losses,
And we have a few 4-player formats. I think the most basic one is just 2-head giant draft. We've had 2-head giant draft or 2-head giant sealed. It's just exactly as it sounds.
Same rules as regular 2-headed giant. So whatever you probably played a pre-release or something like that, very similar. And then a fun one that we do is 10-minute sealed.
10-minute sealed is this crazy thing we heard of last year. Maybe
this was I believe Cranny does this.
Yeah. So basically, you pass out as many packs as you to get in the seal. This is good for 2 teams of 2, and you get 10 minutes to open the packs. Well, sort the packs and build two decks and submit the 2 decks under 10 minutes.
Yeah, that can get pretty crazy.
So I guess we've done this with. Have we done this with 6 people?
I think we only did it with 4.
Okay,
I don't think we did it with 6.
Usually, you end up with these decks that one deck stands out right away that you're going to build this deck, and the other deck you're trying to figure out. You get to the 8-minute mark, and then all of a sudden it really doesn't matter. You just got to put these cards together. We just got to figure out this mana base. We just got to start playing some cards.
Yeah, it's really easy to go like, okay, we got enough cards for mono red, so that's going to be mono red, and then what else do we got here? I don't know.
We're not even that. We have a nice, good, blue-white control deck with splash some red cards. Okay, what are we going to do with these black cards? How many red cards does this blue-white control deck need to splash before this black deck becomes unplayable? And you have 10 minutes to figure it out. And it's not as long as you think it is.
Not at all.
Yeah, by the time you just get it sorted, you're like, oh, we have like 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
Or even less than that. So yeah, those are some examples of some team formats. I'm sure there are other ways to draft, but that's we
for
do.
sure. Infinite ways. I mean, when you really break it down. But so we
And you want to ask if people have good team formats that they cube with, they can tell us on Twitter.
Yeah, for sure. If you have like a one that like a cube format that you love that we haven't talked about, definitely let us know on Twitter or various other Facebook or something like that. Because we're big cubers, and if there's a cool way that we're not doing it, we would like to try. So now we have obviously offered multiple different ways of play. Now, of course, you're going to have different pack sizes for the amount of players that you have. So
this last bit is more of like the mechanics of cube.
Yeah, for sure. So for something like 8 players or more, you're probably going to want 3 packs, 15 or 14. Kind of go between those. Now, if you have 6 players, you may want to be looking at 4 packs of 11.
Dave, you started doing this a lot, and it really seems to have worked out.
Yeah. So the reason for the 4 packs of 11. So like if you have 3 15s, you have 45 cards total. With 4 11s, it's 44. So it's 1 less card overall, but that really doesn't make that much of a difference. But really, the main reason to do that is like if you only have six players and like 15 cards in a pack, you're gonna see like the same cards going around and around. Like you may like have like a double wheel. Whereas 11 card pack, you'll just have one. The same pack will only come back once. You're not gonna see it multiple times. So it kind of keeps it more.
It keeps the cards fresh.
It keeps it honest. You know what I mean? Like it's just
that too.
It's just I don't know. I feel like it's a better way when you only have 6 players, and you're still alternating between each pack. So you're gonna go left, right.
Yeah, because I remember we would do 6-player drafts with just 3 15s, and the end of the packs were always miserable.
Yeah,
because nobody wanted those cards at that point. Where when you do 4 11s, they're just different cards. You get to see You have 1 less card, but it feels like you get to see more cards.
Mm-hmm. You get more packs. Yeah,
you get more packs.
Yeah. So yeah, that I recommend. If you haven't done that, I recommend trying it out. Tell us what you think. And
then we talk a little bit about draft sizes as well. So 8 is obviously the optimal number for a regular draft. It's sweet. You have the most options available to you at that point in time. You can do a team draft. You can do just a regular draft. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of like just what draft was made for.
Yeah.
And Magic, not even for just Cube.
Exactly.
Yeah, the number they originally came up with was just the best number.
Yeah. 6 again is good for a team draft. 10, when you break that, it's generally sort of the max that you really want to reach. And then 12 can be split into 2 6s. But 11, of course, is the worst.
Yeah, you have 11 people show up to Cube Night. If you have a solution to this, please, again, let us know. Because we've tried the 6-player draft, and then you split off in the 5-player draft, and the 5-player draft is always miserable.
Yeah.
And you try the 12-player draft, and it's just too many cards. Nothing ever wheels.
Yeah, so that's just sort of the awkward point. But I mean, just have someone sit out, whatever. You catch a second draft, it's fine. But that's kind of what you're looking at as far as what is an acceptable size for a draft to actually be. Now, this is maybe something that you may not even necessarily think about, but shuffling your cube is actually maybe mundane, but it's something that could be important to how you want your cube to be necessarily represented when it's being drafted.
I think Dave and I have the same philosophy on shuffling.
Yeah, I think so. So a lot of people just don't really care. They'll just take their cube. Maybe you have 500 cards, for example, and you just start shuffling. You just take little piles, shuffle them together. Take piles from other piles, shuffle them together. You just kind of completely random, and that's fine if that's how you want to do it. You don't want to spend a ton of time doing shuffling. I understand. It is mundane. It's just it is time consuming at sometimes. But if you do that. So if you do a regular draft, so you just open a pack of Magic cards, right? It's generally going to have an equal distribution. You might have a few more
You're
red
at least
cards than others.
most likely going to see one of every color.
Right.
Where if you just pick up the cube and start shuffling it, sometimes you're going to get these packs that have 5 red cards, no blue cards, no green cards.
Yeah.
And that's pack 1, pick 1. Now all of a sudden, I'm just priced out of not being blue or green, and then or I pick a really sweet blue card, pick 1, and then pack 2, that pack comes to me. Where now, it's just something just I guess a pet peeve of mine, seeing unbalanced packs like that.
Right. So there is a way to remedy this while still keeping it random. So what I do is I will separate out my cube by color. So I'll just put all the blue cards in one pile, all the red cards in one pile, and so on. All the multicolor cards in one pile, artifacts and lands in separate piles, right? Then I shuffle those piles up. So shuffle all those up. And then what I do is I pile out the cube. So I'll take the stack of blue cards, and then I'll pile it out in maybe 10 different piles, right? Then I'll put that back, and I'll take the next stack, pile that on top of the other piles, and so on. Go all the way through that.
So basically, you get this collation of cards.
Right.
And it's important because, again, I just OCD. I try to make all the packs exactly even, but if you go too far, again, you'll pass a pack, and your opponent to your left will look at it and be like, 2 blue cards, 2 green cards, 2 white cards. Oh, there's only 1 red card. He picked a red card.
Yeah.
So you want to keep a bit of randomness in it. You will either want to, I know your land section, your colorless section have less cards than the color section, so that ends up creating a bit of randomness in it. I always chop off a little bit from the top of each section and mix those all up and just randomly distribute those in there. So then like you said, you separate them out into different colors, but my colors have a bit of randomness in it. So my white stack will have maybe 1 or 2 blue, black, green. I don't know what color cards it is because I did it randomly.
Yeah, and what I'll do is after I pile it all out, I even take the individual piles and then I'll shuffle those together. Or just I'll take one pile, then shuffle it, put it in my put it in the box that I'm keeping my cube in. Take the next pile, shuffle it, put it. So they're not going to be exactly even, but throughout the course of the draft, you should have an even distribution. So the packs might not be 100% equal, but if one pack has, only 1 green card in it, the next pack should have, maybe 3. Over the course of the draft,
You're
it
talking
should all be
statistics
even.
of large,
Yes, right.
large sample size. They should come out even.
Right, and I got to give props to Matt Kranstuber and Ruben Bretzler for that idea because they're the ones who, I believe, I don't know if they came up with it, but they're the ones who
And
I
maybe
learned it
just
from.
this area, but
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I got that idea. It's worked out great. So I mean, I continue to do that. So.
Fair enough. I mean, that's a good, a little bit of tidbit for when you are, putting together your draft and getting prepared for it. So, but that's pretty much everything for Cube. We do have some nice resources you can look to for more advice. So Cube Tutor, and MTG Salvation Forums, and then RiptideLab.com are all great places to look if you are, sort of wanting to know what to do with Cube. And then
these have great resources like most played cards out of a 540. Like if I cut a green card from my cube and I'm trying to find a new card to put in, I'll go to cubetutor.com and look at what's the most commonly played card in the 720 and look at all the green cards. And just because it's there doesn't mean I'll put it in, but I'll see cards that maybe I haven't thought of before that you can try.
Yeah,
Cube Tutor itself, like I guess like strategy wise, isn't going to offer that much, but it's such a good resource for just like keeping track of your cube. It's a website where you can upload all the contents of your cube. You can do a visual spoiler, so you can just look at everything. Like you said, it keeps statistics. You can do like kind of mock drafts with it, so it'll set up like you can even set the packs, like how many packs and how many cards in each pack you want to do. So yeah, it's an awesome website that it's only been around for a couple of years at this point, but it's really come a long way since it first started. I believe it's just one guy that does it, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And there are also some writers that actually, you can see them commonly writing about Cube. So we have Usman Jamil, who writes for Gathering Magic and Star City Games sometimes.
He has written. He used to write for Star City, I believe. I believe he's just for Gathering Magic now. He also has he has a blog at I'dRatherBeCubing.wordpress.com.
Well, I think I can believe that man then about his cube advice.
And he also has a podcast, the Third Power
nice
podcast that you can find out there.
And then Jason Waddle, who writes for Channel Fireball and is also on RiptideLab.com.
Yep. He's I know Kelly, you probably enjoy him more than I do because he kind of has like a lot of like really kind of wacky, crazy ideas.
He's a bit out there, but I like it because it's just fresh and new. Like he has what he calls an Eldrazi domain cube, where one of the archetypes in his cube is domain cards, or not scions, they were spawns at this point. And that cube of his, it's on Cube Tutor. You can look it up. It's one of the cubes that has like multiples of certain cards, just so he can support these kind of weird archetypes. And he also has the ideas for the multicolor section where we were talking about earlier, where you debate about, do I want Abrupt Decay, do I want Maelstrom Pulse? Well, just make a general. I'm going to have either or of these in my draft and just choose at random. He can't. I saw him write an article about that. That's where I got that idea from. It's where I got the idea to do the utility land draft. He wrote about that once. So,
and so definitely a good resource for some interesting takes on cubing. Jim Davis has been known to write about Cube as well, and he's a writer for Star City Games. We also have someone that you've heard throughout this cast, Matt Kranstuber, who has the Joy of Cubing podcast, and usually they have set reviews for Cube after a new set comes out. So that's a great resource if you're having trouble, identifying what cube what cards might be good for your cube. Definitely give that a listen. I know that he has a huge cube following in the area. He's one of the big proponents of it. So definitely expert on the format, if you will.
Yeah, he was the one who kind of like got me into the whole cube thing because before I had moved out to Ohio, I had never cubed before, and his was really the first cube that I played, and I was like, oh, this is like pretty cool. And then I kind of like started the whole, like, okay, what kind of cube do I want to do, and just kind of went from there. But yeah, he's written articles before for Star City for Cube. I mean, it's in the archives if you look it up. And his podcast is pretty good. I wish he did it a little bit more. it's a little bit, it's kind of a long time in between episodes.
It's sparse.
But yeah, I mean, you can go back and check the archives. I mean, a lot of the stuff in the podcast are timeless, so it's not like time sensitive or anything.
Exactly. But But I mean that's pretty much it, guys. That's for our podcast, our mythical Cube episode that we finally delivered.
It's
on.
real.
It's real now.
It's not mythical anymore.
It is an actual thing that has happened, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's something that we've been wanting to bring to you for quite some time, so it's great to see it kind of come to fruition. Now we do want to just do our typical cleanup stuff. So we do want to mention that this weekend there is going to be the Star City Games, the start of the SCG tour in Cincinnati. So please, be sure to attend that. It'll be modern, which is pretty awesome for the main event. So we are all getting prepped for that event. Now, something that you will definitely want to mark on your calendars for the future, though, is Comic Town is having a Winter Classic, and this is a 5K tournament for total prize payout, which is amazing. This is going to be on Saturday, January 23rd. 9 a.m. player registration, 10 a.m. start time for the players meeting. There's also going to be a bunch of side events, including, a $15 GPT, which is going to be awesome. I mean, and also every person that enters into the main event will get a voucher good for a side event or for the GPT, which is pretty awesome to get. It's free value, basically. Now, another thing to mention, there's going to be a 4x Planeswalker points event, which is pretty awesome to see as well. And it's not something that you're going to want to miss if you're in the local area. We definitely want to drive a lot of people to this event because it's going to be very, very awesome. And we're all very excited to have it, in our backyard, basically. So
it's almost literally in my backyard.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, important to note, this is the release weekend of both of the Gatewatch as well. So this is going to be one of the few places where you're going to be able to play highly competitive new standard.
If you have a cold brew, bring your brew.
Do it. Yeah, this is the best time. Everyone's kind of up in the air on what's going to be happening. So, again, mark your calendars. We're going to be talking about it for the next few weeks, of course, but this is kind of the first time you might be hearing about it. But Saturday, January 23rd, the actual event is going to be held at the Courtyard Columbus West. So Google that and come to the event. But Dave?
One thing I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but we still want to do our mailbag episode.
Correct.
Next week we're going to try. So
we are going to try.
I don't know how many responses we've gotten at this point, but if you have a question for us, or even if you want to just provide any feedback on the Cubecast or really anything else that we've done, feel free to holler at us.
Yeah, give us a shout out on Twitter. Our Twitter is just at @YourEndStep. We also have a Gmail at YourEndStep@gmail.com. Facebook, just search for @YourEndStep. We come up. There's plenty of ways to get in contact with us. Drop us a line. Let us know what's going on. Ask us some questions so we can answer them. And we'd really love to have a very interactive episode with everyone next week. But until then, we will wish you adieu and have a happy new year. Bye.